We are back working on our fake Lamborghini drift car build, and we are getting right into the meaty part of this build. For anyone who hasn't seen any of the episodes so far, this is actually a BMW E36 that we chopped up and dropped a Lamborghini Diablo kit car shell on top of.
And this thing is looking absolutely incredible, if I may say so myself. We have the 13B turbo motor sitting in the engine bay, and in the last video we mounted this huge wing on the back of the car.
Though we definitely still have some work to do in the rear wheel fitment area, but don't worry, we will get onto that.
In the last episode we also did the Sleepy Eye mod on the car, and a majority of you guys loved the look, as do I, so we will probably be keeping this look.
And what I would say if you don't like it is wait till this thing is painted, because I guarantee it's gonna change your mind once this thing is all one color. Speaking of paint, this thing is actually booked in at the paint shop in December, so we only have 1 month to get the rest of the car ready and make sure it's all good to go for paint. And well, we are still such a long way off that at this point. We have also locked in the first event for this car, and that's at the end of January, so we literally have 3 months to finish this thing. But we're also headed to Japan for 10 days, so that's 10 days we lose out of November. So the stress levels are definitely high right now.
And the difficult thing from here is choosing the next job to do. There are so many things that need to be done. It's very hard to put it out in a list and to prioritize those jobs.
But after many hours of consulting with Woz here in the shop, I've decided that in this video, we are gonna pull the shell off the chassis for the last time, and we're gonna finish weld and paint the roll cage so we can bolt the shell onto the chassis for the last time ever. Finally done. And that is gonna be an absolutely mammoth job.
But before we get into that, I actually want to test something. So these wheels up the front are 18 by 10.5 wheels. I think they're about a -5 offset, and currently they're not going to work for us because they hit everything when you turn the wheels on full lock.
These wheels are actually meant to be on the rear of the car. Don't worry, we're going to keep the exact same fitment, but what we're going to do is change the width of the wheels and the offsets. So basically the wheel will still sit in the same place, but there won't be so much wheel on the inside of the arch. So what I want to do right now is I have these 17 by 9s here, and I actually want to test 17s on the front of the car. So these are 18s. We're definitely going to be running at least 18 on the rear, but I want to see what it looks like with 17s on the front and see if we can actually get away with it. Obviously the supercar look, the 18, the big wheels, it definitely suits the look of the car, but if we can get away with 17s on the front, it's actually going to give us a lot more clearance when we're on lock, because of course this is a drift car. So I'm going to test the 17s right now, then you guys have to drop your opinion in the comments below.
So here's the 17s on the front, and what I want you to focus on is not so much the fitment, because obviously these are only 17.9, so like they're not filling out the guards as much as we will when we put the proper wheels on, but more so the size this way. So this also has small tires on the front. We will actually run some chunkier tires as well, which will make it look a little bit bigger and fill it in. But I actually dig this look. I think it looks pretty awesome, but it gives us so much more clearance under the guards, and I want to show you guys something. So under here is the hinge for the scissor door. You can see it right there. That is one of the big problems that we have in terms of clearance underneath. With the 18s, it's basically touching, whereas here it has like minimum 2 inches clearance with these wheels. Now, of course, we're running no caster at the moment. Caster is when the wheel basically either sits further backwards or further forwards. So we're running negative caster at the moment just to have the wheel sit where it needs to in the wheel well. But when we do the bodywork on the car, we're actually going to extend this arch a little bit. The body shop guys are going to make it look all nice and perfect so that we can push the caster of the wheel forward, which is what you need in drifting, without obviously the wheel hitting the actual body of the car. So that'll give us a bunch more clearance as well. But I think 17s up the front are going to be the go on the car.
It's crazy how much the wheels change the whole look of a car. Like, I really like the T37 style look on the car. It definitely looks cool. It's a different look. But when we build the wheels for this car and put them on for the final time, I think we're definitely going to go for the bling look.
You can't go past the chrome dish and the chrome face, especially on something like a Lamborghini. It needs to look blingy, but I definitely still dig this look, and maybe one day we will run the T37 look on the car just for some fun.
Anyway, enough of that. Now it's time to shuffle some cars around in the shop, because we're going to put the Lamborghini on the hoist and lift the shell off the car. This is the less fun thing, doing the musical chairs thing in the shop, so let's get it done.
Having a smaller shop and lots of cars means we're constantly playing musical chairs, moving things around. Though considering we started this YouTube channel in a tiny single car garage, I'm definitely not complaining. Once the car's in place, I removed the huge surfboard sized rear wing and unbolted the mounts holding the body to the chassis before carefully lifting off our Diablo shell.
Look how freaking wild that looks.
With no shell on it. God damn, that looks so freaking cool. Shell up here, car down here. I would honestly be tempted one day to take this thing for a drive with no shell on it, but unfortunately, I think once the shell goes on the next time,
it's basically going to be on permanently because we're going to have things on the car welded on that will basically obstruct the shell from coming off. Of course, if we ever need to take the shell off, we can cut those things out. If anything really drastic happens, hopefully that never does, but that just looks absolutely wild.
So the first thing I'm going to do right now is finish off welding the bars onto our roll cage. So we're missing a couple. As you can see on this side, we've got these bars here. They are non-existent on this side, so that's these two right here. So we'll throw those in, and then also back here, we've got two legs that go from here down to the back wheel arches.
So I'm going to spend the next couple of hours slapping those in and fully welding around our whole roll cage, which is, yeah, it's going to take some time. Luckily for you guys, you're watching YouTube, so you get to see this thing happen really quickly. Enjoy. And just like that, we have hit another huge milestone for this build. The cage is officially fully welded in the car.
And I still cannot get over how awesome this thing looks without the shell on it. But having this cage fully finished is just...
well, it's a massive relief because that was a huge job. There's so many welds in a full cage like that.
I mean, usually we just run a half cage with side intrusions in all of our other race cars because that's all we have to have. So the amount of bars in this versus that is just absolutely crazy. So the next steps with this cage is we will etch prime the whole thing. As you can see, I've kind of thrown a little bit on here to see what it's going to look like because I get way too excited with my ADD. But we'll etch prime the whole thing to make sure it doesn't rust. And of course, we're going to paint this cage.
What color are we painting it? Well, we're actually going to paint the cage a very bright white, and that's because it's going to pop on the color that we're going to paint the shell, but I'm not going to let you guys in on that just yet. And now that the cage is done, we're going to take a quick break from the Lamborghini build because I want to tell you guys about today's sponsor.
And that is the Giraffe Tools G20 pressure washer.
Now I'm actually really excited to try this out
because this pressure washer is a wall-mounted pressure washer that's also retractable. So these pressure washers have a 65-foot retractable hose. They're wall-mounted and you can swivel them 180 degrees. And I've got my good friend Dan here who's also a detailer, so he's going to actually let us know if these things are any good.
The G20 unit comes with all of the mounting hardware you need, as well as a mounting template, making the installation super easy. Simply mark and drill your holes, throw in the hardware, and you're ready to mount the pressure washer.
And just like that, it's officially installed. There he goes. Oh, that's so satisfying. Look how tidy that is though. I'm actually so happy with it. Compared to the big mess that I used to have in this corner, the gun sits in its nice little holster right here. Pressure washer, pretty good, but the true test, does it work?
That's a big part of it, yeah. Let's see how we go. So it's got a little lever at the back here. You pick it up, and then you can
swivel
left and right. It has little locators that it locks into as well.
I love that so much. But the best part is this guy. Look at that, 4 rollers. So when you pull it out, boom, it doesn't get caught on anything, which is super nice. So it has 4 nozzles and these all indicate a different type of pressure.
They do have a little quick release, which makes it so much easier.
All right, give it a test. Let's see, I want to see the spray. That
seems pretty good to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so far so good. So the next thing we're gonna do is wash down the Datsun. And one of the best things about this pressure washer is it comes with the foam cannon. So usually you have to buy these separately when you go out and buy pressure washers. It's got the quick release on it as well. So handy, so.
That's pretty crazy.
Makes life so easy.
So the Datsun is clean. What is the verdict, Daniel?
The fact that it all goes back together, keeps it all nice and clean, is like A+ in my book.
This thing is a very welcome improvement to the shop. The link is in the description if you want to grab yours. Shout out to Giraffe for sponsoring this video. Now let's go and actually do the thing we're supposed to be doing, which is build a freaking Lamborghini. So the next thing we need to tackle on the car is our custom shortened steering columns. But this has to go somewhere in here. Now to determine where that needs to go, we need to put a seat into the car, sit in the car, and then tack the mount for this in the proper position.
It's super important we get the seating and steering wheel position perfect in this build, as there's very little room inside the cockpit. Once we're happy with the placement, we cut out a hole for our steering column and use an adjustable axle stand to perfectly set the height of the column. After one final check to make sure it's all perfect, we weld in some rods to hold the bracket in place.
Well, I'm certainly lucky that I had help with that job, because that was definitely not a one-man job. But this is currently how it all sits. Look at that. So that is where we're going to have our steering column. The rods are welded in, so now we can go ahead and box this section in. Then we need to make a bar, basically what's called a dash bar, that will support the steering column and also allow us to run our digital dash. And of course we want to make that in a way that it doesn't get in the way of our actual dash itself. Then we have to go ahead and actually shorten the steering shaft as well. So there's still plenty to do. But I'm hoping by the end of this video we can have a steering wheel bolted to the car and have the wheels turning, which would be a huge moment for the build. Once again, I still can't get over how this car looks just sitting here. I constantly find myself just standing and staring at it, and I have to keep reminding myself to actually get to work. Speaking of, let's box out our steering column. This bit was quite complicated to get right. Lots of little niggly bits to kind of get into. Also, by the way, the BMW engineers who built these cars love to use the seam sealer just everywhere. They just coat everything in it, which makes welding very difficult. Would you look at that? We built a box. Look at our beautiful creation there. Obviously, all just tacked in at the moment. I'll go ahead and tidy it up later when we tidy up all the whole area and paint everything. But I'm really happy with that. Quite a few complicated shapes to try and get that done. Obviously, we've still got to fill this area down here in. That's the last piece that I'll do, probably off camera at some point. That's where our clutch pedal is going to go. So now what we're going to do is throw the steering column back into the car. Then we have to measure how long our steering shaft needs to be. Then we're probably going to have to cut this down and shorten it a little bit.
Once again, we're fitting the steering column so we can measure exactly how much we need to shorten our steering shaft to make it work with our new setup. It turns out we needed to take about 70 millimeters out of it. So I measured and marked the steering shaft, cut it on the bandsaw, and carefully welded it all back together.
And this is our custom steering shaft. Look at that, looks stubby guy. Of course we'll paint it and make it look all fancy later on when we do the rest of the engine bay, subframe and everything, but for now, let's throw this in the car and we're one step closer to having this thing turn with a steering wheel, which is pretty freaking cool. First, we've got to fit it to the steering column. Slide it in. Tap it in, tap it in. All right, our steering column is officially installed. I'm so freaking happy with that, because that's a job that I was very much procrastinating, because it's quite a ways out of my depth in terms of my fabrication skill level, but highly satisfying. Honestly, if you're thinking about doing a project like this or like the cart, I highly recommend it. It's so freaking satisfying when you do this stuff, learn new things and actually get it done. So good. So now let's go ahead and make our dash bar so that we can mount the steering wheel for the first time in our fake Lamborghini Diablo build. So we've got this piece of scrap tube. I absolutely love using up the scrap pile for our dash bar, and essentially it's just going to go something like this. So weld to the tunnel, weld to the cage, weld some tabs down to our column, and boom, we have ourselves a dash bar. Nothing quite like keeping it simple. Remove this guy, and look at that. How freaking sick. Steering column is in. I'm definitely happy with the design. Super simple, but looks good, and hopefully it's gonna work. Which means after all of that hard work, we now get the reward of throwing a steering wheel on this thing and seeing if the wheels actually turn. Of course, we've got our custom two-step garage deep dish suede steering wheel. This is the one from the 836 that I've been using for the past year. Pink and teal stitching. These things are so sick. Of course, grab yours online, twostepgarage.com. But let's chuck this on. We've got a quick release on the car as well now. Boom. Look at that steering wheel on the car. So freaking stoked. Oh my God. I guess we should probably jump in the driver's seat and actually see what the seating position is like. He's toy in here. All right, steering wheel, me, so good. It's really hard to show it on camera from my seating position, but this is honestly like absolutely perfect. Completely nailed it, which is really cool because such an important aspect of the car to have the steering wheel in the right space. And you've just got enough viewing room out here, which is absolutely crazy. Honk, honk. This actually feels wild to be sitting like in this car properly now with the steering wheel in the right place. We should probably check whether the steering wheel actually works. Look at that. Of course, we've got no power steering hooked up at the moment. I'm trying to do that with one hand. No binding that I can feel, which is really nice. One thing I'm going to do quickly with the car, because I think we all deserve it, is I'm just gonna wheel this outside to make sure the steering all works nicely, and I just wanna push it outside. Just stand back and stare at it for a second, and just marvel at all of our hard work up until this point. Yes. That's crazy. That is an absolutely incredible feeling. It rolls so easily, it turns so easily, so we have no bind in the steering, which is really nice. And it's so handy to be able to turn this thing finally, because it's such a pain to move around the shop. But so far, so good with this creation. It's so Mad Max looking at the moment, it's not even funny. Of course, we're still in the fabrication side of the build, but trust me, once we start painting things, this whole thing is going to come together so nicely. And then of course, we need to move on to the back end where we need to chop all of this out, make it look way prettier, because that just looks janky as hell at the moment. But basically, we're gonna remove all of that metal anyway and weld an all new sheet metal so that it comes out right to the edge of the body of the Lamborghini Diablo shell. But that is it for what I think is gonna be a pretty big episode. I'm sorry about the birds, by the way, in Australia. They're so loud out here, can't do anything about it. But we have confirmed the date for the debut of this build, and it is at the end of January for a big Keep It Reet event. They haven't announced the actual event yet, but it's going to be so freaking good. I cannot wait. Which means we've got a solid deadline for this thing. So throughout November and December, I'm going to be smashing the videos out. Over this next week, I'm gonna pump out as many videos as I can. Then we head to Japan for 10 days, so I've really put myself on the back foot with this build, but I'm going to put out videos every second day, I think, while we're in Japan, which is really cool. Then straight back here, and this goes into the paint shop around the end of November. Then I'm gonna do daily vlogs in December of the drift kart. We're gonna finish that whole build as well. So right now to the end of the year, we're absolutely full tilt. We're on the road to 100,000 subscribers. My goal is to get 100,000 by Christmas. But if you're enjoying the series and you want to support the channel, feel free to hit that subscribe button. It really helps. But that's the end of this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. This thing looks absolutely wild. I can't wait to continue to smash out work on it. Thank you, guys. Cheers. You. Peace. Death cart, baby. Probably shouldn't put the shell back on and just leave it like this because it looks so cool, but bye.